Welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer. I have a very interesting topic, a discussion that I want to have with each and every one of you. It is mentioning Donald Trump, it's mentioning the gold standard, it's mentioning the BRICS nations, it's mentioning the 2024 election, and most importantly, what silver's price is going to do during all of this chaos. We know every time there's an election, especially involving Trump, markets go crazy, especially since Trump is tied to precious metals more than a lot of people understand. Did you know that Donald Trump gets paid in gold bars by Amex to run their business out of one of his towers? This is true. Trump will accept gold bullion instead of dollars for a lease deposit from his newest tenant, which is Amex, in one of his properties, 40 Wall Street, 70-story skyscraper in Manhattan's financial district. And that was one of the tallest buildings in the city until Chrysler passed it. Trump will accept the gold at an event in the lobby of the Trump Tower at 725th Avenue. This is $200,000 worth of gold bullion, and it was Amex's idea. Trump's been bullish on gold due to his concerns about the value of the US dollar. We're talking about the President of the United States not having faith in his own dollar. We're $33 trillion in debt. The dollar's lost 98% of its purchasing power. Times are getting worse, and it's only going to get much, much, much worse. Well, I want to talk about how much worse, and even more importantly, what that's going to do to silver's price. There's many variables and factors and unknown variables that all are going to tie into this, though, such as overspending, hyperinflation, quantitative easing. But it's much deeper than just problems within the United States. There is power shifts, global shifts. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and many more are saying, you know what? Instead of letting America dip their hands in our wallets, we're going to create our own currency and kick them to the curb. The USD is the world's reserve currency, but not so much anymore since these other countries aren't using and don't have faith and don't rely on the dollar's strength. And if you think about it, the dollar's only as strong as people think it is. So if people start to think the dollar isn't strong, it literally isn't, kicking us to the curb. You see down here, there's two names, Peter Schiff and Andy Schectman. Andy Schectman has been talking about the BRICS nations for years upon years now. He is the go-to guy. He is the man right now. You'll see him on Kitco News. You'll see him on Robert Kiyosaki's channel. You've seen him on everywhere from Wall Street Silver to even my channel. We have a weekly podcast together called the Silver Stacking Podcast, and I have picked Andy's brain, and he has talked about a lot of stuff that you probably won't hear anywhere else regarding the BRICS nations and also what to do with your silver. What types of silver you should be stacking. And it's pretty funny because when I chose these two articles, I had no idea that Andy Schectman's name was even mentioned in here until I started actually recording it. Just goes to show that if you're subscribed to this channel, you'll get some inside knowledge, especially since Andy Schectman still works with the US Mint, which banned everyone else from buying directly from them. That's a huge deal, and also shows why you should purchase through Miles Franklin, and also mention Silver Slayer sent you. But let's go over this first article titled Trump and the Gold Standard Updated 2023. A lot of states now are actually bringing back the gold standard, and you can actually pay off debts with silver. I think there's like 4 or 5 currently, but there's several other that have signed up. So former U.S. President Donald Trump was keen on returning to the gold standard, but could the U.S. really bring it back? We look at whether it's possible. I know that Trump has jokingly mentioned bringing back the gold standard before, but let's see how realistic he thinks it is today. The gold standard hasn't been used since the 1970s, but when Donald Trump was president, there was some speculation that he could bring it back. And even more so now, since it's kind of here on a very small scale. But if he won the 2024 election, who knows what could happen, especially since he's very aware of China and what's going on with the BRICS nations and this digital currency backed by physical commodities. A lot more so than someone like Joe Biden. And that's also why we need to pay attention to the 2024 election. See, I'm not a political channel. I don't care if you're left, right, up, down, front, center, sideways, or even in the middle. I don't care. This is not a political channel. This is an investing channel. But we do need to pay attention to politics because that will directly affect what silver's price does. So rumors that the gold standard could be reinstated during Trump's presidency, which ran from 2017 to 2021, centered largely on positive comments he made about the idea. Notably, he suggested that it would be, and I quote, wonderful to bring back the gold standard, and a number of his advisors were on the same mind. With Trump now set to run as a 2024 U.S. presidential candidate, will the country return to the gold standard? And what would it mean if we did? That is the million-dollar question. These two paragraphs go into, what is it and when was it introduced? We don't need to talk about that, but we should talk about this part. What countries are currently on the gold standard today? Currently, no countries. Decades ago, governments abandoned the gold standard in favor of fiat monetary systems. It's funny, though, because every fiat-based system lasts around a century. Pretty sure the US dollar is the longest-lasting fiat currency. But as soon as we did that, something happened. Massive amounts of debt flew in. And you know how we're trying to get rid of this debt? By replacing it with more debt. You know what that's like, to put it simply using a metaphor? It's like trying to pay off a credit card with another credit card, and that will catch up. And when it catches up, what do you think's going to happen? What do you think the end result is going to be? Why was the gold standard abandoned? The demise of the gold standard began as World War II was coming to an end. At this time, the leading Western powers met to develop the Bretton Woods Agreement, which ultimately became the framework for global currency markets until 1971. And if you look at it, as soon as we got rid of the gold standard and what happened to the dollar's purchasing power or the dollar's strength, it is hilarious. It's hilarious. So what is the US dollar backed by? It's backed by faith, hope. When you are exchanging a dollar for a good or service, like gas, you are basically giving someone or that store clerk a promise that that dollar is worth that amount. But since the dollar's not backed by anything, it's not worth that amount. Back in the day when the gold standard was in effect, it was. If you gave the store clerk a walking Liberty $half to get a gallon of gas, you were exchanging 50 cents for 50 cents worth of gas because there was 50 cents worth of silver inside that walking Liberty $half. Nowadays, 50 cents can't get you a gallon of gas. And if you still had that walking Liberty $half, you would be able to still get yourself a gallon of gas. Slayer, wait, gas isn't 50 cents. How could a walking Liberty $half still get you a gallon of gas as it did back in the day? It's not the face value of that coin. It's the silver inside of it. Same as back in the day. The 50 cents of silver you were exchanging, which was the real money, could get you that good or service. Well, that same walking Liberty $half you could take to your local coin shop, sell it for $10, $15, and get yourself a couple gallons of gas. See how silver's value is the same as back in the day, but the dollar's value isn't? And that's why you put your money into silver and gold. So, anyways, what has Trump said about the gold standard? Perhaps not common knowledge, Trump has been a long fan of gold. as previously mentioned, he gets paid by Amex in gold bars for leasing a building to them. So, in fact, Sean Williams of the Motley Fool has pointed out Trump has been interested in gold since at least 1970s, when private ownership of gold bullion became legal again. He reportedly invested in gold aggressively at the time, buying the precious metal about $185 and selling it between $780 and $790. Not too bad. There is pictures of Donald Trump signing people's gold bars. There's pictures of that. And actually, I made a video yesterday talking about, or actually today, because I'm posting 2 videos today. Thank you very much. You should subscribe. I post daily, sometimes twice. Earlier today, I made a video about all these billionaires that buy silver. The most successful, wealthy banks and people in the world all have one thing in common. They all invest into silver. Not gold. Well, a lot of them gold, but silver even more particularly, because silver has opportunity beyond even gold. We're talking about Jim Rogers bought silver and is buying it again. We're talking about Warren Buffett bought silver. Thomas Kaplan bought silver. Elon Musk bought a silver mine. Donald Trump bought silver. Even Bill Gates, that billionaire from Texas that bought $50 million worth of silver from Andy Schectman, 900,000 eagles, over 100,000 ounces in constitutional silver and gold, which Andy Schectman pulled that order off in 2 days. I don't think anyone else on this planet could pull off what Andy did, yet alone in 2 days. It's also why you should subscribe to this channel, check out her podcast. But, her as well, because it was a female. Even JP Morgan, the wealthiest investment bank in the world, owns boatloads of gold or silver. Jamie Dimon. We're talking about the most powerful, elite people in the world all own silver. So, Trump has specifically praised the gold standard. In an oft-quoted 2015 GQ interview, covers topics from marijuana to bringing back the gold standard, which would be very hard to do, but boy, would it be wonderful. We'd have a standard on which to base our money. And this is what I was talking about when he jokingly mentioned bringing it back, saying it would be hard to do, but it would be wonderful. He doesn't say it's possible, but he says it would be wonderful. But would it be feasible for the U.S. to return to the gold standard? Well, like I said earlier, some states already have passed this law. Trump's term as president passed without a return to the gold standard, and the consensus seems to be that it's highly unlikely this event will come to pass, even if he takes helm once again. I think that's different nowadays since it's actually in action again, not to the exact same degree, but close enough. And even many ardent supporters of the system recognize going back could create trouble. And talking about completely back, setting silver and gold at a set price. As per the Motley Fool's William, economists largely agree that moving to a lower key version of the gold standard in 1933 was a big reason why U.S. emerged from the Great Depression. A return would be a mistake. A lower key version. I mean, that's kind of what we're doing, right? I made a video about a month ago, I would say, that showed every single state that has brought it back and how many are signed up. I think there's about 24 states, give or take, that are signed up, but only 4 actually passed it. But if a future president did decide to go through with it, what would it take? It would take trade, money supply in the global economy, and the rest of the world would need to go back to the gold standard as well. Why? because otherwise countries that use US dollars could stand with their hands out asking for dollars to be exchanged for gold, including debtors like China and Japan, to which owes a large chunk of its multi-trillion-dollar national debt. So this could be very, very sticky, and I see why it could be troublesome, but not for the reasons they mentioned. If they mentioned the BRICS nations, it would make it would be a better case because of global shifts. Despite the dollar's many strengths, no fiat currencies ever truly stood the test of time. Without exception, reserve fiat currencies have come, conquered, and then been displaced. Inevitably, political convenience trumps economic stewardship, resulting in the decline of reserve currency status. Most commonly, excessive issuance leads to accelerated devaluation and inflates away economic value. We are pumping out dollar bills, flooding the market, and it's oversaturated, and then you see this diminishing purchasing power, and then since it's not backed by anything, what are we going to do? The important question, though, is if we did go back to a gold standard, where would the gold and silver come from? A new source of demand. For gold investors, provisions that would mandate minimum precious metals holdings in the stated treasury could significantly boost demand for physical metals. For instance, Ron's Basement estimates that Missouri alone would need to purchase $9 million worth of bullion to meet 1% criteria laid out in the bill, which drives to establish state-backed precious metals depositories throughout the country, and this could spur fresh momentum in the bull market for gold and silver. But there's always devil in the details. If these bills were to come law and drive genuine demand, they would have to be passed with an emphasis on physical holdings and restrict dilution into paper gold. Interest readers can find more about blah, blah, blah. Secondly, it is unclear if the mandated quantum of gold would be readily available, and severe shortages may end up forcing precious metals back towards investment status rather than tools for purchase as intended by these bills. One thing is for certain, the dollar is beginning to see changes both abroad and at home, and that is the scary part. Is that we're in unknown waters, we're in unknown territory, and that's what Andy Schectman talks about a lot, is we've never been in this situation, right? We can't say what's going to happen because we've never been in a situation like this. At home we have, but like the last part of that says, is abroad, overseas as well, with the BRICS nations and the Belt Road Initiative. And we are in such deep, I'll say, water that we can't pull ourselves out. That's why I say there's no solution to the problem. There's only an alternative, and that alternative is precious metals. That's the only alternative there is. And if you don't take that alternative, you're going to be putting yourself in a very bad situation. Very bad situation. So, moreover, BRICS Summit in August is expected to birth a non-dollar, non-SWIFT payment mechanism that, if successful, could play a key role in monetary landscape of the 21st century. Think about that. China and Brazil switched away from the dollar. Saudi Arabia offered to trade in oil alternative currencies, and accelerated central bank purchase of bullion are paving the way for less significant role for the greenback. The U.S. dollar is losing its reserve status. Listen to this part. To make matters worse, the weaponization of the dollar through SWIFT and the imposition of reams of sanctions forced several of its biggest consumers to desperately search for alternative avenues of exchange. At the global level, de-dollarization has certainly gathered significant momentum. People or countries are backing out of the dollar. And that's one of the many reasons, one of the most important reasons why you should be investing into precious metals. And that is exactly why all these billionaires are as well in these banks, because they know something that the common man doesn't know. We know, but the average everyday person doesn't. So anyways, I'm going to wrap this video up here. I'm doing a giveaway as we approach 100,000 subscribers. Please subscribe. This is going to be such an amazing feat for the silver stacking community as we legitimize, because when we hit 100,000 subscribers, we will get, not me, we will get the channel verification badge. We will get the silver play button. We will, this will be a staple that silver stackers are on the rise, and that more and more of us are becoming aware of this corrupt system and are taking control of our wealth, taking the power away from them and putting it in our own hands. So it means a lot to me, and we're a team. This isn't about me, it's about us. So yeah. Also, if you wanted to purchase from Miles Franklin or Andy Scheckman, as you saw in this article, send an email to info@milesfranklin.com. Weekly deals every Monday. Great, respected company. Always have your back. And since I am good friends with him, if anything ever were to happen, God forbid, just send me an email and I will call him up and we will fix it. We will fix it. And that's why he has 0 negative reviews, because he always fixes mistakes. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.